Hello, everyone. Apologies for the delay. Last minute setup issues.
Good morning, all. How are we? Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How is everybody doing, wherever you are in the world? See
Good to
people.
see you too.
It's been a while, Prasad.
Yeah, it's been
It's
a
been
while. It's been a while. Yeah,
ages
yeah.
since I've
I've
seen
been.
you.
Yeah, it's actually been a while, and it's going to be busy even now. Like the next 2 weeks, most of us will be busy with reInvent actually. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, me, James, Ashish, uh, Michelle, we all will be traveling to Vegas for actually reInvent, and will not be available next week and the week after. Jamila should be here, but let's see. We'll keep you informed how the sessions will go. And hopefully, Ashish should also join us today. If not, that's fine. Me and James will walk you through mainly on the interview tips in general, and it will be more of a open session. So if you have any questions about how to prepare for interviews, mainly for the behavioral questions, or even for how to handle or tackle technical questions, feel free to ask on the chat, and we'll try our best to answer. And we might also, depending upon the time, we might also do some role playing with me and James. Let's see.
See how we go.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Prerna.
I thought it'd be quite interesting to start with some tips around the more technical things. Obviously, just coming off the back of the technical track and how to kind of approach the technical side of some of the interviews that you get. Because, I mean, at Amazon and at all companies, there will be an element of technical, but there'll also be an element of behavioral, right? So, and I think that to start, one of the common things I see, at least in technical interviews, which I think is both really valuable if you do it, and not so much, is not being afraid to admit when you don't know something. It's always really interesting when you're interviewing somebody and you can see that they are trying to say an answer that they don't really know, and it's actually more valuable, at least in my opinion, to just admit that you don't know something, but follow that up importantly with how you would find out, right? Like, don't just say I don't know. Say I don't know, but I would go and ask Prasad because I know Prasad is the expert on all things networking, for example. And it's something I see quite often is with the technical questions. It's really easy to just think you need to answer everything, when actually, at least at Amazon, there's nobody trying to catch you out. There's no trick questions. There's none of that. It's just trying to get a handle on kind of what it is that you know and what you don't know. I don't know if you see the same, Prasad.
Oh yeah, I mean that's actually true. So when we interview, right, we do obviously everyone cannot know everything in the world, and technical, it grows so fast. It's so big. Even if you talk about just AWS services, if you start asking me, I'll not be able to tell you all about the 200 plus services that we have. But yes, I can always find out and get back to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I get into a customer meeting, and as long as they are asking me in my expert area like Microsoft workloads in AWS, great. But if they, let's say, start asking me about SageMaker or something like that, which I'm not aware of, I say that, great, let me find the expert who can help you with this, and I'll get back to you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we do. I see Ashish coming in, so let me add Ashish to the stream.
Sheesh.
Hey, Ashish.
Hi everyone, how is everyone doing? Give me a few minutes. I'm just back home, so I'm just trying to set up things. But you carry on, please.
Yeah. So yeah, it's same in the interview. Whether it's a customer meeting or in an interview, there will be questions that you do not know answer of, and instead of dodging, or giving the wrong answer and losing trust, right? It's better to say that, I do not know, but I can try and find out, or something like that. And that actually shows two things. First, earn trust. How would that when we ask technical questions, we are not only looking for technical answers, but also trying to look to the personality of the person. We're trying to understand what behavior the person is executing. And that shows the earned trust, like you are honest that you do not know. Great. It also shows learn and be curious. You are saying that you'll be following up, you'll be learning about something and you'll be following it up, right? So there's a way that even you might be thinking that, oh man, they asked something I do not know about, but how you can convert that in an interview so that it
Mhm.
shows your strengths as a personality rather than a weakness that you do not know something.
Yeah, absolutely. Customer obsession as well, right? Because
Yeah.
giving the wrong answer is going to be more detrimental to a customer than going off and taking longer to get a response to the customer, but getting the right answer in the end, and that's the more important thing. So yeah, there's LPs everywhere with with
Yeah.
just that whole, and I think even outside of the AWS services, right? No one's an expert in all domains in tech. Like I know next to nothing about networking. Like if you ask me to explain what border gateway protocol is, I absolutely no idea. So people have got their areas of expertise and their areas of interest as well, right? So it's nobody can know everything about everything. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And even in a normal technical question, right? Like the way we answer also matters. So it's like, for example, what is cloud? Everyone knows what is cloud, you know, but the depth, or like the kind of answer that you provide actually will show the maturity that you have in the industry, or the kind of work that you have done. Anyone who has done AWS certification would be knowing what is cloud. But if you're able to explain it, articulate it well. So articulation is really important. So when you're going into an interview, do practice a few times about how you articulate. Even your intro, that's really important. Like as interviewers, or as a human being, we tend to catch keywords and ask about that. If in an interview you're talking about something and you say that microservices, like, and I'll be able to catch it, okay, the person knows about microservices, or person has worked on a project on microservices, and I'll start digging deep on that. Right? It happened in one of the interview that a person, like in his interview, he talked multiple times about microservices, and uh, and build some projects on it, or how we help customers on it. And like, I have worked on microservices a lot, so I was very happy that like, okay, we have something common to talk about in the interview. And we started talking about that, and I started digging deep into a bit, and the person was not aware of few of the things, and that actually loses the trust. If you're talking about something, then be sure that you're a subject matter expert on that, if it's a technical interview. If it is behavioral, and we'll talk about behavioral in a moment, it's totally different thing altogether. Like it doesn't matter what examples. In my interview, I gave about an example of starting a running group in my native place, and that was one of my like so it was no related to technical, no related to what I do professionally. It's about you as a person, that are you able to lead, are you able to like, yeah, we'll come back to the leadership principles, like bias for action, ownership, all of those kinds of steps that we would like to see.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
Ashish, I know it has been a rush day for all of us, like
Yeah, it's been like I had some personal work to do, and I thought I would be late, but yeah, so hopefully I'm on time.
yeah, and actually, like, I got confused. I somehow felt the time zones got changed, so it will be starting at 4 p.m. our time, and
Okay.
I was accordingly preparing everything. But then, thankfully, I chatted with James, and James said, "No, it's 3 p.m." And I'm sure like I'm
Yeah, the
running way
time
too
zone
late there.
confusions are there. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Good.
and that's why a 15 minutes delay happened.
Okay, good. Now, one more thing, like where we addressing it, I was able to like put together week 7 and week 8 information on the resources page. So if anybody was looking for it, go for it. That YouTube links are there, the PDF files are there, so you should be able to find it there.
Thank you, Ashish.
Awesome.
Thank you for
No
that.
worries at all.
I know it's with the reinvent coming in. We all are.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So
So
let's see if there are any questions.
yeah, there is.
Okay.
So Deepa wants to hear more about reInvent.
Uh, it's Vegas. What
reInvent
else
is
you want to
very
hear?
crazy for AWS employees, Deepa. hence us all being a little bit like all over the place. It's crazy
Yeah.
time.
So reInvent is like a place where a lot of announcements happen. Like people, we would be working with partners, and any new feature which are coming up, that would be a showcase kind of a scenario. A lot of new features would be announced, new partnership may be announced, maybe new partners would come on board, and we would have hearing from them also, and a lot of hands-on activities too. So like you could get hands-on on exam certification workshops, you could do hands-on lab there, and probably you could network. That would be the biggest thing, I would say. And obviously a lot of goodies to grab hold of, like maybe some pen or diaries or maybe power banks. So obviously lots of activities happen, but yeah, it's a good learning experience, to be honest. And then there are a lot of networking opportunities. So to some people you only speak over email or see over camera, maybe you would be able to actually talk to them and talk to partners also, because they have a lot of solutions which we may not be aware independently. So that makes much easier to go into reInvent and learn about a lot of stuff. So it's just learning and lot of walking, because the venues are so spread out. You keep on going from one venue to another venue, or to attend one session to another, and that makes little lot of exercises in terms of walking in there.
And you can
Yeah,
register for
and
reInvent.
all of the sessions will. So there is a
Recorded.
virtual element, I believe, and then all of the
Yeah.
sessions will go on YouTube afterwards. So
Yeah.
anything that looks really interesting, if you go and look at the session catalog, and I'll put a link in the chat in a moment, and you find the session ID, it'll be something like SVS 203. You'll then be able to go and keep a note of that and find that on YouTube afterwards as well, which is always quite a good way to kind of get back and look at things that you might not be able to get to in person, but you can still watch them afterwards.
No, even you can watch them live. So there are the
Yeah.
It's all
keynotes
live stream, is
and
it? Okay.
yeah, there's a keynote and the leadership sessions, and there are a few breakout sessions which are streamed live. So I've put the link for the registration page, and you can register for the virtual one for free, right? So register for that, and then you can add sessions in your calendar and everything, and you'll be able to watch the sessions live as they are happening. They are streamed live. There are four kinds of sessions. There are multiple kinds of sessions, but there are four main kinds of sessions that happen at reInvent. The first is breakout session, which is more of a delivery style. A speaker or one or more speakers would be, speaking to a large audience, and those are recorded and put on the YouTube. There are other sessions which are hands-on sessions, workshops, which cannot be recorded because they're more hands-on. But the workshops are available outside, and go through the catalog and let us know if you want to try a specific workshop. We should be able to find you the link and send it to you guys or share with you guys. There are a lot of options. There are too many. There might be few workshops which can be done only with a like what we call as event engine account, which like we as AWS folks provide. But most of the workshops are like you can do it in your account as well, so that should be okay. And
Yeah.
there is another kind of session, chalk talk, which is more of an interactive session where we do not use powerpoints. It's more of a whiteboarding session. We use chalk and talk. It's a whiteboarding session. Even that is not recorded, but that's okay. Most of the sessions interesting are mainly breakouts, which are recorded and actually are either live streamed, and and they will be also uploaded on the YouTube, so you should be able to catch up with all of that. Okay, I got the invite through the builders grant. That's awesome, but I could not get an appointment date in time for visa. But oh, okay, that's uh, next year for sure. Would love to meet you in person. So there are few actually BeSA program folks who are actually joining, and and in case if you are joining, in person, feel free to ping us. We'll be happy to catch up with you in person. A
Yeah.
couple of folks reached out to me already, and there is a platform called Peer Talk on the reInvent app. You should be able to book time with us so that we get a meeting place, and a reInvent happens like across at least 8 or 9 hotels, so it's very difficult to catch hold of each other.
Yeah.
So through that app, you'll be able to book a specific time slot and specific location where we'll get a meeting room and we'll be able to chat freely.
There was a question, Prasad, on the interview side. I
Yeah.
hope we covered most of the things on reInvent, but if there are anything else, let us know, and we would obviously share our experience once we return from there. And the question was from Ramakrishnan, like how many round of interviews be there for a solution architecting working in Java?
Okay, irrespective of which technology you're working on, general process how it looks like at AWS, it's separate for different companies, obviously, you know, but at AWS there will be one or two phone screens. When I interviewed, it was two phone screens, but now I've seen it more and more. They are doing one phone screen instead of two phone screens, and that phone screen might be 90 minutes, but generally it is 60 minutes. And the first phone screen that happened is mainly technical. So if it is a 90 minutes phone screen, then it will be like 40 minutes of technical, 40 minutes of uh, behavioral, and 10 minutes for you to ask questions. If it is 60 minutes interview, it will be around 30 minutes for technical, 20 minutes behavioral, and 10 minutes for you to ask questions, or the introductions initially. But the focus there is to mainly see whether you are technically adept or not, and to see whether or not it's a preliminary check that you are fit with Amazon leadership principles. And once that gets cleared, for a solution architect, generally we do have a assessment or an assignment. But that assignment is what we call, is not an elimination round. They give you an assignment and you have to submit the assignment just before your loop interview. Now, loop interview is a set of 5 interviews that before the pandemic used to happen in one day. Not back to back, they'll give you a half an hour breaks in between somewhere here and there, but yeah, 5 interviews in one day. But now I've seen them spread. It happens virtually first of all, and it is spread across 2 days, 2 interviews on one day and 3 interviews on one day, and so on and so forth, right, to make it easier. And those 5 interviews, none of those interviews are elimination round. You It's not like, if you think that, if I'm going to pass first round, then I'm going to go to for second round. It's not like that. So you give all those 5 interviews, and in one of those interviews, the assessment that you have submitted is going to, one of the person would be actually asking few questions on that, and he will be the person responsible to grade you on the assessment. But 80% of this loop will be behavioral, and few interviewers here might not be even technical at all. They might be totally from a different background. Like, if you're interviewing, let's say for AWS, the person might be from a Prime Video or retail or Audible or IMDb. It might completely different. uh, and the other persons, even from AWS, might be from a sales background who do not know technology. So what we want to hear is that, are you able to explain in a way that you are able to communicate with people who are not from technical background also? So as I said, 80% of that would be kind of behavioral, and we'll look through a few examples of the behavioral today, and how to structure your answers in the star format, and what exactly we look for in that. After those 5 interviews happen, generally in the internal process, five of the interviewers get together for a process called debrief, which means that we discuss, we all of the people vote whether it is inclined or not inclined, and then we do a debrief, and based on that, the outcome is communicated by the recruiter to the candidate.
Yeah, someone's asked a really good follow-up question as well there, actually. So Chancellor said, are the 5 interviews for the loop on different LPs for each interview?
Yes. So each of the interviewer assesses you on one or more leadership principles. So
But
yes,
you won't know, right? You don't know which one. The interviewer won't say, this is for deliver results. They won't. So you won't be told.
obviously. So it depends upon question level. Tell me about a time when you took a initiative to do something. That means you would be able to understand it is for bias for action, right?
Mhm.
Tell me about a time when you implemented something end to end on your own. They're talking about ownership. It's about, you can get the hint, and there are a lot of reading materials which I will share it. Let me, in fact, I did share one document on the LinkedIn group, which has questions split by leadership principles, and that is kind of a bible of all the interview questions that that can be there for leadership principles. It has more than 100 questions there, uh, split by leadership principles. So through the question, you'll be able to guess what leadership principle it is. But yeah, obviously, no one is going to tell you specifically that I am going to talk about hiring and developing the best, or insist on higher standards. Okay, uh, anyone in the group does not know about Amazon leadership principles at all?
I would be surprised if anyone doesn't know.
Okay, that's good to know that everyone knows about Amazon leadership principles, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, an interesting bit of advice that a lot of people on my team, at least, who I know who've been successful, have all prepared the same way for these loop interviews. So I think it's quite a valuable thing to share. And I prepared the same way. So how I prepared for my interview is I wrote down all 16 leadership principles on a piece of paper, and then I went through each leadership principle and wrote an example scenario from my career or life about each, one or two for each leadership principles. Then I had a list of all these different answers, and then I went through and turned each one into like the star format, if you will. So then I had this almost, well, it turned into like a 3 or 4 page document by the end, but had a list of examples where I knew someone, had an example around customer obsession. I had an example around hire and develop the best. I've not got any examples for earned trust. Then I knew how to think a bit more deeply about earned trust. So I think putting some preparation in to think about the leadership principles, things you've done in line with the leadership principles. And like Prasad said, they don't need to be examples that are in tech, right? Like Prasad, did you say you gave an example on a running group you started, for example? Like you can still demonstrate leadership principles outside of tech. Like all the scenarios don't need to be based on software development or architecture or networking or whatever. It can be things from your personal life. Like they're really valuable examples as well, because the leadership principles are about you as a person as opposed to your technical ability or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I see that people struggling to create more stories, just because they're thinking only about their work experience. So if you just expand a bit of your horizon, you'll be able to find a lot of examples.
And another thought I have, like people sometimes ask me that, can I use the same story again? I say probably yes. Why not? Means if a story is not probably just about one leadership principle, maybe that has multiple leadership principle being demonstrated, maybe ownership, maybe invent and simplify, maybe customer obsession. So there's no point, like you can shift your focus and then maybe reuse the same story again, shouldn't be a problem. The idea is not to hear the story, means not in the story format, but to understand the qualities a person may be bringing to the table when he or she joins Amazon. So that is more important rather than that thinking, hey, I have to get another story, just cook up. Actually didn't happen. It may not sell well because there would be probing question on story. It's not like we just want to hear. We may want to probe you. Okay, you did that. If you had to have the same situation again, what you would do differently, what you think worked well in that situation or what didn't work well, or
Mm-hmm.
what you think could have been done better in that situation. So it's not like just we want to listen, we want to probe it to understand that, okay, what you learned from it and what kind of experience you have gathered from that particular evident or particular incident which you have taken care of. So it will be ready to have some follow-up question on the story whatever you tell, and it's completely okay to repeat stories, no problem at all on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. So this is what like when I mentor people for like a specific Amazon interview, I generally say that or any other like I was working with another person who was like interviewing with Google. It's like you need to prepare stories, and it cannot be just one or two. Obviously, you need to have something at least 5 to 10 stories to start with. But do not think about you need to have 20 stories. Instead of having 20 weak stories, have 10 strong stories. That's more important. Whatever story you say, it should be strong. It should be able to kind of show that you are taking initiatives, you are taking lead. It should be able to have a impact, a proper impact. When we call about impact, right, it should be actually about the customer and not about you. And I probably I've spoken about this before also. Like if it's about about the impact, and you say that what was the impact, my manager said me that I did a great job. That's a byproduct, right? The impact would be something that the customer is able to save. Let's say the customer was kind of like delivering a product, and they were able to deliver the pipeline, the DevOps pipeline that you created. It helped them streamline so that they're able to deliver features into production 2x faster than what they used to do. That would be the actual impact. It has to be quantifiable, right?
Mm.
uh, like you getting a recognition or getting a promotion or getting better bonus that year is a byproduct that's going to happen, right? So always think about what benefit based of your action has been on the customer.
Yeah.
And it might see, and on that, and this is what happened when I was speaking with one of the BeSA participant. I'm like, no, Prasad, I'm not the only one working on that particular project. There are, at least 50 people working on that project, and it did have that impact, the bigger impact. But how can I say that, I did this because of which that impact happened? So, and that person was tending to always say we, right? It was like, we as a group did this, we as a group did this. That's great. I understand in large teams, large organizations, in large projects, there'll be multiple people who will be doing that. But in an interview, at least in Amazon interview, we would like to hear what you as an individual did that has made the difference, right? Not as a group. So, let's say if your group like transformed a specific application or migrated, let's say, a application portfolio from on-prem to cloud. Let's say you did that, and it will not be individual you. Let's say there is a group of 10 people who did that, and the group had let's say 3 developers, two migration specialists, one database admin, one like a project manager, one technical lead, you know and you as a group did that. But while you're explaining that, you should be always able to tell that what your role was specifically, whether you were a developer in that, depending upon the number of years of experience you have, or you were a technical lead in that, or you were the migration specialist or a database admin, and how your contribution helped in success of that project.
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a little while to understand with the star format. It took me a little while to kind of get the difference between task and action, the T and the A, and that's how I see task and action. Task is we needed to migrate these servers from on-premise to the cloud, and then action is I was the database specialist, I was the modernization specialist. This is what I did, and then the result was, and the result can come back to what the result was as a team. Like as the result, we managed to migrate the servers in 50% quicker time than we thought, for example. Like that's how this were. Like I say, it took me a while to kind of get the difference between task and action. I was like, a task and an action is the same thing. So that's exactly what Prasad is just saying. Like most people are working as part of a larger team, right? So what did the team need to do? What was the task? And then how did you move that forward? What action did you take to help move that forward?
Yeah. And when it comes to task, and that's the right thing that James said. One other thing, especially if you are actually like applying for the senior positions, one thing that we tend to look is that how did that task came? Is that something that someone asked you to do it, or is it something that you found a gap and then you took an initiative to do it, right? So that's where like so for the junior positions, it is completely fine that there was a problem, a manager saw the problem, they said that this problem is to fix, you picked up the problem and you solved it, great. But for more senior positions, we would like to see the persons who are able to identify the gaps themselves, find the problems themselves. Sometimes even customers might not see the problems or the gaps. How are you able to anticipate what issues they are going to run into beforehand, and then carve a task out of it for you to yourself take action? So how are we doing on the chat? Any questions specifically that we have?
Yeah, James is answering most of them. There was a question previously being asked that, hey, there's a difficult time going on, hirings are at stop. How we can be prepared in these type of situation? Any thoughts?
I do have my own thoughts, but yeah, Ashish or James, in case if you like to, I don't want to be speaking all the time. So
Yeah, means my thought is like it is a cycle. It happens, right? Means it is always anything which is always there would be two side of the coin or whatever you say it. But the thing is like if you feel that there is currently hiring not happening, then means that you have more time to prepare for, or maybe you can be little more selective on what specific things you want to do instead of applying for hundreds of jobs. So maybe less job openings now, That means focused efforts can be there. Instead of investing your energy in different jobs, you can look for specific and start applying. And obviously, this is a good time to start learning. As you might have read that success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. Opportunity is not in your hand, but preparation is in your hand. So if you combine these two things together, keep working. Maybe not today, maybe not day after tomorrow, but things would come up. Believe me, things happen for a reason, and there would be good thing coming up. So don't lose on preparation, because if in opportunity comes and you are not prepared, you would be 100% losing it. So keep preparation, keep on learning new things, try to focus, set some goals that, hey, I want to learn this or achieve this in particular time frame, and then you can probably be better positioned to handle jobs or handle interviews. That's my thought.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like it's an opportunity in a lot of ways, right? Like if hiring is frozen for, let's say, 6 months, for example, and we don't know that, by the way. There was a question in the chat, and I don't know it's going to be 6 months, just as an example. But that's 6 months more to learn, right? That's 6 months more time you can build up a sample on your GitHub or start writing a blog. I don't know. There's like many different things you can use that 6 months. But Ashish is 100% right, and I fully agree. Like if you're prepared and you put the effort in, then good things will happen. Like that's at least in my opinion, absolutely true.
No, obviously, preparation is the key, and this is how I say it, right? So around 6 months back, or starting even from after the pandemic got hit, there was a huge shortage of skills, and industry was looking for skills, and there was no one skilled in these particular digital transformation skills, and those who were skilled were able to negotiate salaries that you can't even think about, right? I have seen freshers getting salary that I used to get after 10 years of experience at that time, because they were prepared for that kind of shortage, right? And they got a huge head start, which is great, right? And see, sooner or later that tide will turn. Yes, right now the macroeconomics is looking gleam, and all the companies are bit cautious, so it's going to take some time, right? But it might be like 3 months, 6 months, year, we don't know. But if you take this time to prepare yourself and build your, not only just technically build your soft skills, build how to articulate yourself, your writing skills, why don't you think about building your personal brand, on LinkedIn, so everyone recognizes you, uh, so that when this opportunity opens, recruiters reach out to you directly rather than you start applying for jobs again. If you are, if you have your own personal brand, believe me, recruiters will reach out to you, right? And then you are already prepared in terms of technology, in terms of your soft skills. And interview is like, obviously 50% is technical skills, but 50 more than 50% is soft skills, the way you articulate, the way, as I always say, on the other side of the table, it's a person sitting. If you're able to make a good rapport with that person during the interview, few technical questions that you're not able to answer, that will be looked, bypassed. Okay, that person has shown that the person will be able to gel well with the team, he'll be able to learn things, he'll be able to even if he doesn't know, if the person doesn't know, the person will be able to find things and get the work done. So use this time for that. And yes, when we talk about preparation is multifold, not just one specific thing that, okay, let's start getting AWS certifications, which is great, you should be doing that, but also other things. Build your own personal projects that will really help you, and uh, share knowledge with others. When you start sharing knowledge with others, you start building your brand, and when you start building your brand, recruiters do notice, the company executives do notice. And imagine if you get into an interview and the interviewer already knows you, how easy it will be for you. It will be a cakewalk for you, right? So think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said at the end then is really interesting, Prasad, about starting to like talk publicly about things and build your brand. I can't remember who it is. There's a famous quote, and it's something like, if you want to prove that you know something, teach it. And like it's I can't remember who the quote is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I've found it with me on YouTube. Like you get such a deeper level of knowledge when you try and teach something, because you think you know something, then you go to teach it and you're like, actually, I don't really know that well enough to be able to teach it to someone who doesn't know it. So even just starting to write and talk about things a bit more, it's extremely valuable for like checking your own knowledge and trying to see where your gaps might be. Because I've learned a lot from starting to do things on YouTube. I was like, I thought I knew Lambda. No, I don't. Now I realize I don't, because I need to teach it to somebody.
And then you pick up more skills, right? Like, you like I see James picking up video editing skills, right? I'm not sure how good he was initially or not, but
I mean, I wouldn't quite say good now, Prasad. Have you seen my YouTube videos? There's absolutely
I've seen,
no editing.
believe me, compared to me, they're awesome. Like I suck at video editing, so so you pick up more skills on that. And anyways, Ashish is our graphics guru, the kind of like he creates too good of images, and he just uses PowerPoint, like no fancy tool like Canvas or something, that the latest tool that goes around in the market right now. But yeah, he's a plain old PowerPoint guy and can create any graphics that you can think about.
I means I prefer to like not to be bogged down by tools. Let's use what is available and be a minimalist. Kind of like there's no point like learning this tool and that version and then maybe not using it. I use PowerPoint a lot, so I prefer for everything, I would say. And there was one more question which I want to take here is like, uh, do is your previous interview feedback matters into the next interview? Whatever notes is there, or people maybe you interviewed for position X, you could not clear it, obviously there would be some information stored about it. Would it affect my next interview or next position I'm applying for?
Depends. uh, if you're interviewing within, let's say, 3 to 6 months of your last failed
Exactly.
interview, right, it might. So uh, you might get rejected because you're not a role fit, might be, but you might have done okay on the leadership principles. In those cases, you will be like, okay, 3 to 6 months, uh, you would be like kind of okay, you're good to interview again, and then you can start your fresh interview. But let's say your answers, behavioral answers, were not in a format, or were not impactful enough, it did not exhibit leadership principles, then generally we recommend to have 6 months gap. Mainly because technical gaps can be actually filled pretty quickly. 3 months to 6 months is fine, but behavioral is something that you will need some time to actually kind of start do it on your own, so that you yourself experience it, and then you'll be able to exhibit those leadership principles, right? So yes and no. But let's say if you interviewed last year, like no, before 12 months, then that interview will not matter at all. The whatever notes are written will not matter at all. So if it has been a gap of more than 6 months, then do not worry about what answers you gave then and all that. Yeah, it will not matter much.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I will say on that as well, like for me personally, the role I applied for and I interviewed for at Amazon isn't the role I actually got. So I was actually offered a different role to the one I was interviewed for. So even if you aren't directly a fit for the role in question, that doesn't necessarily mean there might not be other opportunities. So just following on from that from Prasad, like it may not even be that you need to wait 6 months. It might just be there's another role internally. So that is also something that can happen. Which
Yeah,
preparation
and this
goes,
is,
as
yeah.
a sheet said.
Yeah, this has happened a couple of times. So it's like we need to understand here the role of bar raiser, and there is a lot of like. Let me find the link and send it to you while we are speaking also. But bar raiser is a person in Amazon interview, loop interview, who is going to ensure that you are raising the bar on Amazon leadership principles, right? And what that means is that if you're not a role fit, let's say hiring manager says that the particular person that we are interviewing for is not specifically fit for my team, but the bar raiser says that, but he executes leadership principles. He raises the bar on leadership principles. In that case, you would, recruiter would be trying to find another role for you within Amazon or within, and a lot of times we are able to find. So that particular result is valid for 6 months, that you have raised the bar for, leadership principles. And within 6 months, if you are able to find another role, then you have an offer. And I'll
Yeah.
give you one example. Yeah, we know that all companies have started freezing, hiring freeze going on. So, in fact, one of BeSA member, she got selected, you know, through the first round, and just before the loop, the hiring freeze happened, and it was discussed that option was to either go ahead and give the loop, or wait for the hiring freeze to open. And if the person gives the loop now, and if it is a positive, then whenever the hiring freeze will open, if it is within 6 months, then she'll be getting the offer. uh, so that's also a few options. So that particular person, in fact, actually was gave the loop, got the did not get the offer, but cleared the interview. Hiring manager is really happy, but obviously the hiring freeze is right now going on. And a few of the folks, like one of my friend, he it happened similar with him at Microsoft. So got almost there, but just before the offer had to be released, uh, the hiring freeze happened. And it keeps happening. As Ashish said, the industry cycle keeps moving, right?
It is cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a cycle. And in my experience, I have 16 years of experience in industry right now. In my experience, the freeze happens for a very limited time. I've not seen that in the industry that the companies are not hiring for 2 years. Now it has always been like 3 to 6 months generally. You know
Agree on that. Yeah, that's true. And one thing more about bar raiser is like bar raiser have one more reason to be there into interviews. Let's say if I'm a hiring manager and I have a requirement or a resource crunch, I may still be looking to hire someone who may be just enough good enough kind of a person, not raising the bar because I'm pressurized by the business because I have to hire people because I have to deliver something. So the bar raiser is there to nullify that effect that hey, let's not take decision based on business priorities, but let's see if this person is actually good enough or not. Means he's raising the bar or not. So it's like to try to nullify the business impact because sometimes people may cut corner because we need to hire fast or we need to hire more people. Maybe we are a little doubtful and maybe we may say let's give it a chance. So bar raiser is there also to ensure that the business pressure do not take priority in terms of hiring and we hire the best. And that's why I would say, and I repeat this to multiple people I talk to, that I am yet to meet an average person in Amazon. I haven't met any average person so far. Anyone I have met with like is all excellent people, all top of the notch kind of top guns, what you could should call them. So that's why that's the hiring process is so complicated and stringent that we do not cut corners at all, and we look for people who could be contributing and people should be learning from each other. So that's how the process is. So it is little complicated, but yes, it is still a nice thing I would say because you work together, you get to work with best of the best.
Yeah, I think while we're on the subject of bar raisers, I think there's a really interesting tip here, kind of around what you were saying, Prasad, about soft skills, because the bar raiser, so like in my interview, for example, the bar raiser was from Amazon retail marketing in Amazon retail. And I think it really starts to look at, we can all talk technical, we're all technical people, but that having that situation where you need to talk to somebody who's completely non-technical, has absolutely no idea what the cloud is, let alone what an EC2 instance is or what Lambda is or what serverless is. So that's something else to be prepared for when you're doing your interview prep. Like the bar raiser may not necessarily be someone technical. So how do you then communicate these same examples and these same situations to somebody who won't know or probably care that you implemented Kubernetes and across multi-cloud and multi-region with a, that's just not going to mean anything. So that's another really interesting thing to keep in mind when you're doing your preparation is that be able to explain your examples in a way that don't have the technical parts, if that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
yeah. And so one thing, while we are on the bar raiser, and then I'll make another point on what Ashish was saying, because it was bang on actually. But on the bar raiser, so like the question that was asked to me once was, uh, why do we focus so much on the behavioral questions or the Amazon leadership principles? Like if a person is really technically good, then why does it matters that the person, other things matters if the person is able to get the job done? So the answer to that is the role that a person is being hired might be there for a year or 2 or 3 years. But if a person actually exhibits leadership principles, then the person is a fit for Amazon culture. Then let's say even if that particular role is not there at all, the person will be able to still be fit in anywhere in the Amazon, as long as the person has the culture matches. If it's a culture fit, then he can fit in any role and not just specific role that the person is being hired for. Now, coming to Ashish's point, on that, I need to yet see a person, who is, not bar raising at Amazon. It's absolutely true. Now, when you are hearing this, and this is something like even it happened to me when I was applying for Amazon. Actually, I was interviewing for multiple companies, and I'm like, and I had a very good relationship with my boss at the previous company, and he actually got me referred to Amazon. His friend was working with Amazon, and he said, Prasad, you should. And that particular person was knowing that I'm looking for other opportunities, and he said you should apply for Amazon too. And I was like, there's no point, Amazon is not going to hire me. you know I have not worked in a tier 1 company till now. I know I have, like, yeah, yes, 10 plus years of experience, but all my companies have been in, like, tier 2 companies or tier 3 companies. So why wouldn't, like, and when I actually graduated, I did try for companies like Microsoft, Adobe, and I got rejected. And after that, I stopped trying for any of these big companies. I'm like, no, these are not for me. I'm more like, no, tier 2 companies, let me stick to that. And I did do well there, good enough. So when Dipsy said me, you should be applying for Amazon, I'm like, okay, let's do that. I just submitted my resume because anyways I was interviewing, and surprisingly I got a call. And in that call, the recruiter was really good, comforted me, explained me what exactly is required from me and what my experience is, and blah blah blah. And then I went through the interview process, and that's when I realized that I was undervaluing myself. If you ask me 3 years back, will I be able to be a part of Amazon, or be a part of where people say that everyone is excellent, or bar raising, something like that, I would have said no. But that's because I was undervaluing myself. So when you hear this conversation from us, do not think that you cannot reach there. There are so many examples that uh, that can easily, if I'd say this to everyone, all my colleagues, previous colleagues, with all the companies that I have worked with, if I can do it very well, you can do it. Like, we all come from the similar background, right? So and it's not that difficult. It's just about, obviously preparation is required. You need to get into that groove of understanding how to answer these behavioral questions. So what I feel is that anyone who has good experience can easily crack the technical interview, like, because Amazon, we do not ask them to write the code, or do some very complex designs. It's more about, we try to understand that whether you know the basics, and are you able to articulate the basics and explain them well. And that's pretty much the interview part is, the technical interview part is. But it's all about behavioral now. We ask, tell me about a complex problem that you solve with a simple solution. Now this question can have multiple answers, and it is totally open-ended. Or tell me about a time when you did not have enough data to take the right decision. What did you do? How did you move forward? Tell me about a time when you had to make a decision without informing your manager, right? Tell me about a time when you had to override your manager decision. Now, these are the kind of scenarios that you might not have faced in your real life, right? And that's when you'll have to actually think about how you can answer these questions, right? Now, I was asked a question in my interview. Tell me about a time when you used metrics to take a specific decision while delivering a software, right? Now, I was not prepared for that answer. I was not, I was not anticipating that kind of question. But during the interview, I had to actually, think about a scenario And that was probably my weakest answer because I was not well prepared for that answer. I don't remember exactly what I answered, but you'll be always getting such kind of questions also. But the best is try and think about all your experience, write them down, and then map the leadership principles with that. And as James said, right, have your stories created already in star format. What the situation was, what the task was, what action is, what result is, and practice them. Like I remember, one mistake that I did in my loop interview, that I prepared only 7 stories. And 7 is really less compared to like generally what is required. But those 7 stories was really strong. The first interview, I used 4 of them. Second interview, I used one from the previous and 2 new. And I had a gap of 45 minutes after the first 2 back-to-back interviews. So after the first 2 interviews, I panicked. Like I have only one unique story that is left. So in those 45 minutes, I did think about few more scenarios, offshoots of those stories, you know, in and I did repeat a lot of my answers. And I did think that because I'm doing so much repetitions, I will not be selected. But that did not happen. They did select me. And there was, in fact, in the fifth interview, I did tell the interviewer that, like I have exhausted all my stories. I'm going to repeat one of the story that I've already asked. It was for a specific question. But I did add one line that, but because I think that particular question is very relevant to the question, that particular story is very relevant to the question that you're asking, right? And it was for a totally different leadership principle, but you can like mold the situation, and most stories are actually aligned to more than one leadership principle. Anyways, enough of me speaking. How are we doing on the chat, or Ashish, James?
Yeah,
All
good.
good, all good. Yeah.
I mean, I want to just wrap like something you said then, Sam, about like the undervaluing yourself. Like, so before AWS, the biggest company I'd worked for had, I think, 50 employees or 40 employees. Like, it's that whole undervaluing yourself. It's funny, like undervaluing yourself is actually quite an Amazonian thing, right? Like being humble and being like it's actually quite a good example of someone who's Amazonian. So it's interesting. Actually. I mean, quite a lot of humble people who've said the same thing. I never thought I could do this, and here we are.
Exactly. Here we are. So, and the other reason for that, like, okay, so the role that I applied for, and I come from a .NET development background. So the role that I applied for was, yeah, same here, James, was Microsoft DevTools in AWS. Like so the role was about that. And coming from a like Microsoft stack world, I did not ever think that AWS will be having a role for me. But they did had. I did apply. I did join. When I joined on the first day, when I got introduced to the team, out of around 20 people, more than 15 were from Microsoft. Actually, they were actually from Microsoft, working for 10-15 years in Microsoft. Now I'm coming into this team who are actually like already worked in these like big company, and like and I'm like a big inferiority complex stuck me. Like, man, I'm not be able to survive here. I need to ramp up a lot. But the kind of support that you get in these companies, right, is really great. For the first 3 months, uh, you know now we are actually actively discouraged to get in front of the customer. I got into my first customer meeting probably in the 4th month or 5th month, I don't remember now. But for the first 3 months, it's given entirely to you. Now it's up to you that use this 3 months as a honeymoon period, or use these 3 months to actually skill yourself up. So I did not have any like AWS experience before coming to AWS. It was zero AWS experience, so I had to do all these certifications to ramp myself up on AWS. Apart from that, like it was about AWS messaging. When like how do you present AWS in front of customers, how do we talk about that? So I used those 3 months to ramp myself up. Like and it was a I'm not saying it was easy. It was a steep learning curve for me, but everyone was there to help me out, in the team, so that actually makes it easy.
I agree on that. The support mechanism is too strong, to be honest. I'll share my example also. Like when I started meeting people within my team, I realized that I am the dumbest person in the room. I felt like that. I felt for a while, and then I started realizing that everyone is feeling the same, not because they are dumb, but because everyone has their own expertise and own experiences. So everyone feels that, hey, Ashish knows more than Prasad. Prasad thinks James knows more than me. James thinks Ashish knows more than me. So that's how it the competition start. And competition is not with you. Those people are competing with themselves and making themselves a better person, a better professional. So you learn a lot by just following some people. And obviously there is a mechanism in AWS which is for a buddy. So a buddy is a person like whom you can reach out in initial days, hey, how to file this ticket or how to get a new laptop, so those kind of things. So that mechanism is also very strong, and the team is very, very supportive. So having it here should be good enough. Am I, my voice echoing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, not for me. It sounds all right to me.
Not for me actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah,
Yes.
so I felt like I'm the dumbest person in the room. I felt so for a while. Then I realized no, it's not the same thing because there's so much talent in the room that you feel that there is so much things to learn. And I used to maintain a list of Prasad like and James like these are the things I have to learn once I started joining AWS. What I realized that list kept on growing and growing because there is always something new to learn. There is always something new coming up. So I stopped maintaining it. I thought I know these 10 things, 15 things, and I want to make it 20, but not all the things which I could learn. So I had to limit sometimes that what else I could learn and what else I could contribute on.
Yeah, it's where the whole that I don't know if anyone in the chat has heard of the term T-shaped, like the letter T-shaped, and you can talk about a T-shaped developer or a T-shaped architect, and the idea being, there's lots and lots of things to learn. That's the bottom. So you know a little bit about a lot of things, and then you pick, one, two, three, four
Vertical.
topics that is the T. If you think about a bar chart, so you know a little bit about lots of things, but you pick some areas where you become the absolute specialist in. For Ashish, of course, that's analogies. Yeah, so that is exactly what you said, right, Ashish? Like everyone has their own specialisms, everyone has their own things, and
Yeah.
everybody feels like the dumbest person in the room. That I speak to you two, and I'm like, you two.
Nice. And there is a question from Sunil that at the end of each LP interview, when the candidate has time to ask question, can we share an LP related story which may not have been covered by that interviewer? I doubt that, Sunil. That is my personal opinion because that time is given to you to ask a relevant question, and it's a time for you to shine in a way that, hey, I am interested in the job. I can bring a lot of qualities. I am interested to know more about the team who is hiring, or to know more about the role, or maybe how my onboarding may look like, what kind of challenges I would be handling. So it's like it's my approach initially. It's a funny story to share. Let me share that. When my early school days, I was not a very studious person. I'm still not, but my thought was like, if I have mugged up a question, even if it is not being asked in the exam, I would still write the answer. It's not the same in interview. So I know that you want to share that you know more, but that 10-minute window is not for that. I would keep it for something which is relevant, something which would show my inclination towards role, something which shows that I'm prepared and I may be a good contributor to the team. So use that 10-minute wisely. Don't share something which is not being asked, because probably interview, even if he is pleased with that, he may not include it into the evaluation or into the actual outcome of the interview. So use that 10-minute wisely.
Yeah. And if someone does not ask me a question, in an interview, I'll not say it's a red flag, but I'll keep it as a orange flag for sure. You know, uh, so always make sure that you have some good questions prepared and ask the interviewer. And it can be about, and I think I did mention it in one of the previous session about that, like what kind of questions you should be asking. In your fourth or fifth interview, you should not be asking about what will be, the day-to-day activities or something like that. That is something that you should be actually knowing beforehand, what your job responsibilities are. It should be like a more in-depth questions to understand, probably depending upon what level you are. If you're at a higher level, you can think about asking organizational structure and where you'll be exactly placed in the organizational structure, right? If you're in a more junior role, then you might be asking about, what support do we get for learning, or is there a specific team learning activities that happens. You need to be very specific. And my favorite questions are, if you are going to their LinkedIn profile and digging into their story and asking the interviewer their specific story, that you are interested in them specifically. Like, I remember that one of my interviewer had started a startup and then left the startup, to join AWS. And I asked that person very specific question about, how is working for yourself in a startup, and now when you're working for a big organization like AWS, do you see a culture change? That shows interviewer that you're generally interested not only in AWS culture, but also him. And it's that. So take it very seriously, preparing questions for every interviewer. So good part is, like, there were times, I'm not sure about around a decade back, Amazon and all were used to share the interviewer names or not, but any small companies that I have worked for and interviewed for, I never used to know who the interviewer was. But now I've seen this more and more, a best practice, that about the interviewer beforehand, that who specific person is taking the interview. So take that time to do that particular research and ask relevant questions.
Yeah, and one thing I will say on that, and something I've been asked quite a few times, people ask questions like, can you tell me about a new AWS service that's going to be released? Or can you tell me about the new Amazon Fire device? And don't ask questions like that because you've got a limited amount of time to actually ask questions. And of course, we can't answer them questions. We can't talk about new AWS services and things like that. So, the dog's just woke up. Dog wants to join the interview. Back is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a question from Deepa. Let me put it here. In case of behavioral question, if we never come across that situation, of course, it is not good to say, no, I haven't come across. So how to handle that kind of answer? Now, I would give you my 2 cents here, Deepa. Now, I'm expecting that if you are interviewing for Amazon, you should have story, because there are not random questions coming up, would be mostly related to leadership principle, so may not be exactly relevant to what is being asked, but something somewhere relevant. So it would depend on your judgment that time, that hey, what is the motivation of that question. It is not a one-to-one question, or it's not like a black and white question. It is a elaborative question, so you need to identify that what this principle could be aligned to, or what could be the motivation of that question, and then answer those specific answers. Otherwise, it would be saying don't know, obviously is wrong, but it also shows that you are not prepared. So I would try to answer it. I try to understand what could be the logic behind it, and then try to see if I can answer that question. So that would be my 2 cents. How about you, Prasad, on this
Yeah.
question?
So this is where your soft skill comes into picture, right?
Exactly.
This is where how you pivot the questions. Now the best part about the star format, and I'll see if I can get an example while talking. But see, the situation is very fluid. When I ask people to prepare your answers, right, your impact, your activity that you have done is kind of rigid. That this was the activity that you have done. This is the impact that you have got. But the situation that leads to the task and the activity and that is a bit fluid, right? So let's say you are asked, tell me about a time when you had to say no to a customer, right? And it might have happened that you have not said no to a customer, right? And if you say that, no, I never say no to the customer because customer is king and they, whatever they say we do, and you might be thinking that you are doing the customer obsession by saying that, but no, customer obsession is not that whatever customer says you do. Customer obsession is that you are doing the right thing for the customer, and many times customer do not know what the right thing is. You need to work with them to explore that, right? Now you might have done that. Sometimes you might have helped customer in exploring what the right thing is, right, by doing a drawing discussion. So let's say, and you have been asked a point blank question, that tell me about a time when you said no to a customer. You said that, I have not exactly said no to a customer, but there have been scenarios when customer was not aware of exactly how they should be proceeding. And we did, I did help the customer on what their next action should be. And then you fit in your story, right? So that's how you should be doing. Kind of slightly pivot and tell interviewer that you do not have the exact scenario, but then you bring your strong story and kind of pivot it, and that's how you mold it. I'm not sure if you're able to get how how to do that, but it will happen in interview that the question will be a bit tricky, and you'll have to mold it to a way that you would like to answer it. And that happens a lot even in public speaking. Very frankly, when you give a session, right, and at the end, if you're giving a session, especially at a large audience at like AWS summit, or even in a small one-to-one customer meeting, it might happen. Customer might ask you a question point blank that you might not be able to answer directly. Then you need to pivot it a bit. So learning to this how to pivot the question and bring it back into the context is a skill that needs to be acquired over the time.
Yeah, I find that challenge a lot when with obviously knowing about service releases and things like that, and a customer will ask a question, and you're like, I know that something's coming that will help solve your problem, but I can't talk about it. So let's pivot the conversation and talk about this other thing for a little bit. It's a really good skill to be able to
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, another question Chris had, and James answered it, and it's very concise answer James has given, but I still want to contribute a little bit on that. So can you answer be too long-winded and in tips to be concise? Thank you for talking through this. So my approach here is like, I'll give you my personal opinion. If I feel that this answer can be prolonged or it could be very complicated answer, I upfront say that, hey, I am giving you a short version first, but if you have follow-up question, let me know and I would be happy to elaborate. So I say, hey, this is what is the specific answer, but if you want me to specific to allow elaboration on something, let me know. So then I leave it to their discretion, like should they ask me to elaborate, or are they happy with what they were looking for. So check with interviewer, like, yeah, what should they do. So I say completely first, this is a concise answer, but I would be happy to elaborate if you want to. So in this way you can save time, and if they have follow-up question, obviously they would ask.
Yeah, totally agree. So, and I'm giving you an example of a live interview, which one of the candidate answered, and this was actually I think more of a technical question, technical come behavioral question, and it was more about asking about uh, did you actually migrate a customer, or no, how would you migrate something from X to Y? There was a question like that. I don't remember exactly. The person started with these are the steps that we do in general, but if you allow me, I'll give you an example of what I did with my customer. And I was interested. I said, okay, let's go ahead. And the person started explaining me. That was the first clue that he knew that if he's going to answer from the very beginning all of it, it's going to take time. So he gave me the opportunity to see whether or not I want to hear it. And I was actually genuinely interested, so I said yes. And even while answering that question, he talked about the 6 steps that actually he took to do the whole whatever the project was completed. And then and he said that like every step I'm going to just mention that this is a step for that done, but let me know if you want me to dive deep into any specific step, and I'll be happy to do that, right? And there was a third or fourth step, I don't remember, but that particular step I was actually curious that how that person performed that step, and I asked a follow-up question on that particular step. So the overall discussion on that one particular question went on for almost 15 to 20 minutes. But the way the person was actually answering was, I could have actually stopped him at a 5-minute mark, 10-minute mark, 12-minute mark, 30-minute mark, so that because it showed me multiple things, um, not only his technical and the story that he has, but he can manage the conversation. That's what showed me the most. So a lot of time what happens is that when you're in a customer meeting, you need to actually manage the show, and it showed me that he will be able to do that because he know where to pause, where to dive deep, where to be at a high level. So yeah. And another way to be concise is that specifically leave few things for follow-up questions. Do not go all in with your first answer, right? Because there will be follow-up questions, and if you have something good in the follow-up questions ready, answers prepared, it will be really good. And this is what I, like we recommend also when you're preparing your answers in star format, prepare for the follow-up questions also, right? There will be follow-up question about, like what would you do, or would you do something differently if you do it all over again, right? Then think about it. And if you say that no, everything was perfect, might not be the right answer, because there is always a scope for improvement. When you do something in a specific way, you might find some things and retrospectively think that it could have been improved. So talk about those things.
Yeah, good. We're getting a lot of questions on that. Can we take an example of a star question?
Should we do a role play?
Yeah, let's try that. Means why
Yeah.
not? If people are interested to hear that, why not?
Yeah. And okay, let's give this opportunity to the audience. If anyone in the audience wants to come live and face a question, random question on leadership principle, or behavioral question, and give an attempt, let us know. And then we'll privately send you the link to come online and join the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, we'll do a role play here. We'll start doing a role play.
Yeah, we won't judge you, but it's a good time. Like if you're preparing something, and if you want that, hey, if you we should dissect the answer you are giving, we would be happy to do it. So no hard feelings. If we are too brutal, we won't be. But yeah, then let's
we'll
let's
be,
play with
yeah,
that. No, why not?
we'll be both constructive and critical. Like so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good. So let me ask a question, and I'll let any of you decide who wants to answer it as a role play. And then so let's take a simple question. Tell me a situation when you had some time critical project to deliver and you could not deliver.
Oh, good one. You're talking
Complicated one,
about
isn't it?
preparation, right? You're putting us both on the spot now, Ashish.
Yeah, means I can reverse the chairs if you want to. No, but idea is like sometimes we are so focused on talking about success only that we do not talk about failures, and I think it is not a good thing because you never succeed without having any failure at all. Means then you would be God kind of a stuff. So
I,
it's okay to talk about failures too. So don't be afraid. Sometime it happens. We could not meet the deadline. Come may the what be the reasons, but yeah, it can happen.
I could probably take a stab at it, I think, actually.
I love the comment here. It was a simple question. I can try and answer that. I'm not much structured, but I can try and answer that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was something, like when I was working for a bank and we were developing their remortgage application. And we did actually, like complete the phase one. And we had a deadline, we had to, release the phase two in a 4 weeks time frame after the phase one. So we were at that stage when, things were live and there were some critical bugs that had to be pushed out. What happened during that time was, and this is where the technology comes into picture, the evolving technology comes into picture. .NET Core 3.1 got released. And then the technical architect said that we should be upgrading our .NET Core 2.1 to .NET Core 3.1, because our current code base was in .NET Core 2.1. Because .NET Core 3.1 was a long-term support release, and .NET Core 2 was not a long-term support release. So, and it was decided that whenever .NET Core 3.1 would come out, our code base has to be upgraded to that. Now, doing both, the critical bugs that had to go out during the phase two, and this was not possible. So we had to prioritize. And that's where, like, me being the lead engineer in the project had to take that call. So what I did was I arranged a meeting between the, business stakeholders from the client perspective and the technical stakeholders from our, consultant perspective, and we did discuss that in a, in a meeting. It was a very heated discussion that happened, but I made it clear that one of the things could be happening. It cannot be that both. I cannot put my team, my team consisted of 8 people. There were 2 feature teams, 4 people per feature team. And overall, along with me and the product owner and the business, we were around 11 people team, but 8 were the one who were actually developing it. I could not put my 8 people, working midnight oil for full 1 month. So that was not possible. Technical team said that, okay, these seems to be more business critical functionalities, which is actually impacting the end customer who are actually, using the remortgage application. So let's prioritize that. And as soon as phase 1 would complete, then when we will be able to do another 2 weeks to upgrade .NET Core 2.1 to extra. Now, during that time, there was another person who was actually, joining our team, and that particular we thought about an opportunity, like a kind of a, that is that particular person will be able to, because that particular person will take time in ramping up on the business of remortgage and understand the code base. But if that person is a .NET expert, will that person will be able to actually upgrade that, right? And that was a good thing. So that's what, quickly I talked to that person, that whether that particular person who was transferring from another project to our project will be able to join a couple of weeks earlier. So I had a call with the manager of that particular person who was working on a project, that we would need that person sooner. Can we borrow him earlier? And these are the reasons. And that's where relationships comes into picture. I had a good relationship with that particular person's manager, and that particular manager agreed to release that particular person. And that particular person joined my team 2 weeks earlier. And ultimately, we were able to release both the things in the same time frame. So just before the release happened, we found a security vulnerability. So we were using Veracode as a tool for the security vulnerable scan, and that got introduced because of this upgrading .NET Core 3.1. So we had these 2 particular branches. So we ultimately stopped that, and we were not able to release it. Impact was that, though kind of we thought we will be able to do that with that particular person joining us, it still got delayed by 2 weeks in pushing out the .NET Core 3.1 release.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's a good example, Prasad. Yeah, if I start dissecting it, so I could understand the situation, what was. So what was the issue, what the situation was, like you had some timeline to meet, and then there were some critical vulnerabilities, some upgrade required. So even if I'm a non-tech person, I would at least understand the situation. And then task, obviously you wanted to deliver on time. You looked for the solutions around, like what could be done on that. You analyze the solution, you analyze and set expectation with meeting, like we could deliver either of them, maybe not both together. That was expectation setting. And then you analyze it and were able to think out of the box to get a person on board faster, or maybe to look for another solution, and then obviously you were able to deliver the result at the end. So it may not be what everyone may have similar example, but yeah, it is a simple example of like how a simple thing could be delivered into a star format. And sometimes people come to result much faster than they should. Like I was intrigued with the story Prasad was telling, that whether he will tell that he has completed everything on time, or whether he could not complete it on the time. So the end was not revealed at the very first beginning, so I was interested in listening to that. So that is a good strategy. Don't deliver the result at the very first moment. It is a story, so let it build up, and then go to the climax, and then end it in that fashion. So that was a good example, I would say. How about you, James? Any observation you had in this?
No, almost exactly the same. I mean, I guess if I put my slightly more critical hat on, Prasad, I guess that answer that Prasad gave was very much aimed at a technical audience. So I think if I was a completely if I was the bar raiser and I was marketing, for example, and I'm sure Prasad, you would have given a very different answer if that was the case. But Prasad's talking about .NET Core 3.1, application migrations, upgrading things, bug fixes, like. So I think that was a great answer, as Ashish said, and I agree with everything Ashish said. But that same example could have worked in a non-technical
non-tech
setting. You just have to change some of the wording slightly. So you wouldn't talk about .NET Core. You just say, we had to. The application was broken, but we also needed to upgrade it. Right? That's the same thing that Prasad said, but in completely different words that someone who isn't technical would understand. And that's where you kind of do need to think on your feet a little bit and kind of.
Who the interviewers are exactly. Yeah, that is important.
I Absolutely agree. A better way to frame would have been, like the new version of the software. We had to upgrade to the new version of the software,
Yeah.
and yeah, and this is where preparation comes into picture,
Hmm.
right? If you prepare it well in advance, then you will be able to use the right terminology. Otherwise, you would be like using the same terminology as you would use for both technical as well as non-technical audience, right? So cool.
Good. Let's try one more. Now, anyone from you want to ask question?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to be like just like a devil's advocate asking bad questions. So yeah, bring it on.
Okay, I'll ask a question again. Like we all love to hear the more like failure stories and success stories. So I like to ask a similar question. Tell me about a time when you discovered that your idea was not the best course of action. What was your idea? Why wasn't your
Hmm.
idea the best course of action? How did you find out that you were not on the correct path?
Yeah, so yeah, I could relate to one of the project I was delivering for a government entity in UAE, and we were not directly engaged with government, but we were working with a partner. So obviously, the idea was that hey, partner has got the project, and we were supposed to deliver on them, or we were working together with partner. The issue was the estimation which was done by me initially was little off track. I would say little means it was like 30% overwork was required in that particular situation. We realized it very late because there were a lot of miscommunication happening between when multiple parties are involved, and I won't blame miscommunication, but it was a problem which I could not anticipate because of the complex nature of the project. So I was not able to get that complete picture and was not able to estimate properly. So situation was complicated. Obviously government contracts are time bound, and then if government blacklist you for some reasons, then lot of complication happens in a small country like UAE where a lot of things are well connected. So we need to figure out a way that how we could still deliver on the time and not have little consequences on that. Now we have to come up with innovative solution. Obviously I was little constrained on the time I could invest on a project being a single person on the project. What I did, I asked the partner company to help me out with one of their best resource. And what I did that I helped that person to be with me shadow on my project, and I empowered him for the next phase which I could not estimate properly. So I helped him learn about the things while we were doing the project, while I was delivering the things which is required, and this person was also ramping up. Obviously, I had to be little slower in the way I was implementing things, but I ensured that this person was having enough time to learn on that, practice on it. I taken some little extra time to help him train him. I also asked one of my colleague to help him out with some basic stuff before he could actually start with the project. And then by the time we were in time crunch, he became like my extended arm to help me out in those situations. And the good part was that partner also saw that as something, as an extra effort which we were doing, instead of just saying that hey, it is your problem, not our problem, because we are bound with SOW and don't cannot help you because it is not part of SOW. But we were able to build a better relationship with partner. Obviously a lot of back and forth happened in between, but the end result was that we were able to deliver that on time, and partner appreciated the effort. Obviously project was delivered with the all the bells and whistles we were looking for. And because of this ramping up period, we were able to have that partner's confidence, which resulted into more project given to us. So we were able to win two more projects because of that partner's help. And the model which we tried, we implemented in other engagements also. So we don't want to like only do things ourselves. If we could empower a partners person, then maybe we would have more helping hand when we actually need it. So we tried that model into multiple projects to have some partner person also getting trained, and that worked out well, and it is still being followed in the company as of now.
It's raining leadership principles, Ashish. Already in there. That's awesome. It's a really good example.
Yeah,
Okay,
really, really, really good example. And what I actually liked about it was that when Ashish talked about failure, he did not blame anyone else. He
Mm.
actually, like talked about, I was not able to anticipate. And that is the important part. In sometimes when I take an interview, right, people shy away from saying that they miss something, right? So it's like, project was not delivered on time because the architect created a bad design, because project manager was not able to manage the timeline, and they give all sorts of reasons than telling that because I actually probably, I will not say written a bad code, but I actually missed a critical piece of requirement which I did not implement. And that would have been such an easy thing. Like obviously you implement such large complex softwares, you could actually miss a small requirement. Be candid about it. I missed this requirement, and the learning from that was, before starting to code, I always reread the requirements and confirm it with my business analyst. So take a learning out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like Ashish did, right? So always make the failures, when you make success, you make success personal. That it is, I what did because of it is succeeded. Then make the failures also personal,
Yeah.
and never stop at
Number
failure.
one way to number one way to earn trust, right, Prasad? Like stick your hand
Exactly.
up, this is what I've done something wrong, this is what I did. And I think people often think like as in an interview, you don't want to talk about when you got something wrong, but it's actually a really powerful thing to talk about as long as you put the learning on the end. What Prasad just said was really important. Don't just say I failed, say I failed, and now because I failed, I now read the statement of works better, or I do this or I do that. Like make it a learning, but that's better than saying that you never fail. That's because everyone fails. Everyone fails all the time. We're in a Vogels, everything fails all the time. It applies to people and also computers.
Yeah. So like I say that, if you say that you have never failed, it can be only just two reasons. One, you are lying, right? Second, you have never stepped out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
It's
hundred
like you
percent.
have always been in that shell that, you do things that you know.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
Nice. Anyone else? Any other questions? Anything which you feel that hey, you feel confused about the answers we have given, or anywhere you feel it was not star related? Let us know, and we would be happy to answer those questions.
So there was a
It's a
question
good
really
time.
early on actually that I thought was quite interesting, and we can probably all give a really quick and very different answer to it. But it was which are the three most valuable LPs as a solutions architect? I thought it was a really interesting question because I'm sure we'll all give three completely different leadership principles.
Yeah.
Ah,
Do either of you two want to take a stab?
yeah. So see, it depends upon, like your leveling, whether you're junior level, mid or higher level, right? See, at all of them, one thing that will be actually across all three is earn trust, right? You cannot remove that. You cannot, as a solutions architect, you are a consultant and you cannot be lying. So, earning trust is really important. But depending upon the level, for example, if you're applying for a very senior role, for example, L6 or L7 roles, I would say mainly, like, which is principal level, think big becomes very important. That how you think about very large initiatives. You know, when you're at a more junior level, one of the most important thing that I look for a solution architect is two things apart from earn trust: bias for action and learn and be curious. So if you're, starting your career, and if you think about these three things, earn trust, that, you're able to make that rapport with your interviewer or customer or anything by earning trust. Bias for action, that is you're open to try new things, that you're always jump, like if you see a problem, you're going to fix it rather than thinking that someone else is going to fix it, right? Third is learn and be curious. You're starting your career, so always be on that, learn and be curious. uh, as I said, like as you grow up, if you're a mid-level, then insist on higher standards. That becomes really important. That are you, you're delivering, but are you delivering with the right standards? It's like about, I had to push this code, I did push this code. Whether it works or not, it's tester's problem, not my problem. If tester will report a bug, I'll fix it. But have you actually ensured that all the scenarios that you have coded for are working? Have you thought about all that scenarios? So that insist on higher standards, it's important, right? And the higher levels, it's more about like ownership uh, and if you come at principal level, think big, and then success and scale brings responsibility, right? So like we have this famous dialogue uh, in Spider-Man movies, right? With great
Yeah.
power comes great responsibility. So it's really important thing actually. If you're climbing up, then you're becoming more responsible. Not only of the stuff that you are doing, but of your entire team, entire org, entire application, solution, business vertical. Depending upon at what stage you are. Those would be my sense on the leadership principles.
Yeah, nice one. If I had to pick up, I would be on little technical side. I would say that hey, for a mid-level solution architect, invent and simplify would also make sense because yeah, you are trying to. If there is a process defined, I agree it may be the best process, but there may be always a way to shorten it, or it will always be a way to optimize it. So don't think that hey, if something has been created, it is the most perfect way. It could be, but why not try to invent and simplify, because that is always going to be there, and that keeps your creativity up. Otherwise you are just following up whatever is available. So I would say invent and simplify for me would be something a solution architect should look into, that because basically you are providing a business solution, or you're solving a business problem through technical solution. So how much easy you could make it for customer, how efficient you could make it, optimize you could make it, that would obviously be appreciated. Second, as I would say, learn and be curious. I would say it applies at every level of essays because there is. I give an example in my training that think about that you are on a big tree. If on that big tree, if you could be able to just explore a branch, you would be the most learned person in the world. But I don't think even a branch you would be able to explore. Consider that you are on a small branch and you may be able to explore only one or two leaves in the whole lifetime, because IT field is so big and complicated. So learn and be curious, and don't limit yourself that hey, I want to only do this. Maybe not that, but sometimes it is good to try things from a different perspective. It would give you more idea on how things could be solved, or you could be applied to relate your knowledge or combine your knowledge and then get better solution on that. So that's how I would say that invent and simplify, learn and be curious. And then obviously customer obsession, because you are working for a customer. Now always don't think customer is an external party. A customer could be internal one, could be like you are our customer in BeSA in a way, right? So think from customer perspective, not purely from like external bodies. It could be internal. You are mentoring someone, he or she could be your customer. You are training someone, he or she could be your customer. So think of from that perspective, and that will obviously keep you on the top positions. How about you, James? What would be your three principles?
Oh, earns trust. That's a completely agree with Sad. Like number one for me across any level, anywhere.
Exactly.
If you've not got trust with the person you're dealing with, then yeah, it's fundamental to all of them. Dive deep, I think, is another one. Like because of the way again, I'm more maybe a technical sway to my answers, but because every single problem in tech, there's multiple ways to solve, and just because it's been solved way for another customer doesn't mean that it will be the same solution for your customer right now. So really diving deep into what the customer is trying to achieve, what are the business outcomes, what that understanding your customer in a lot more detail is super important. And then along with that, learn and be curious. Solutions architects, you're designing solutions, you're helping customers solve their problems. If you're not earning trust, diving deep and being curious about that customer's specific problem, then you probably won't end up getting customer obsessed because you're not really understanding the customer's specific problem. So, like as an example, Netflix do microservices, so everyone should do microservices. Well, your specific customer might not need microservices. They might not need serverless. They might not need something else. So, really taking that time to understand your customer is I think fundamental for a solutions architect, because every single customer, the same industry, the same size, are completely different customers. So yeah, they're my three: earns trust, dive deep, learn, be curious. And there we are. I think between the three of us, we've covered all 16 leadership principles.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, there are a few questions. Is today the last session? No, today is not the last session.
It's
We'll
ninth
have three
session,
more.
three more to go.
Three more to go. Exactly. Today
Three
is the
more to go.
first. Yeah. We'll see whether we'll be able to have the sessions next 2 weeks because most of us are at reinvent. But we'll keep you posted on the group whether we are having session next week and the week after or not. Otherwise, we'll resume it afterwards.
Yeah, because we are traveling mostly on Saturdays, and that would be a little complicated. Yeah, so probably let's see how it goes. Jamila may be contributing. Maybe she
Yeah.
would be able to have a session. But yeah, if we are having some time in between, we would be obviously then talking about. Does reinvent happen in India also? Answer is no.
So reinvent
Yeah,
happens only in Las Vegas every
that's
year.
all.
I know like
There are the
AWS
summits, though, right?
summits.
So the AWS run like localized
Different
summit.
events, regional events also.
Yeah.
Yeah, watch parties. Check your user groups. Like if you're in a specific city, check AWS user groups. Generally, what happens is that these user groups come together in one place to watch the keynotes and networking and all. So check with your local AWS groups. But yeah, any AWS events that are happening is AWS summits that happen regionally. So I know that New Delhi summit happens in India, and that's quite big. It's actually quite big. It will happen around mm, May June timeframe next year. Uh, okay, there's another question about yeah. What's the ideal timeline? Should we answer the question within 2-3 minutes in general? Ideally, yes, 2-3 minutes or max 5 minutes, but that will be too much. Keep it to 2-3 minutes, right? And that's the ideal timeline, I would say. What's the other question? Can we have an example in star format which is out of professional experience or from life experience? I mean, how to format non-IT experience. Okay, I can attempt that. Unless James or anyone else who wants to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so like for example, you're asked a question. Uh, Tell me about a time you helped uh, someone or you helped someone to grow. And it will be more of a professional question only, right? It will be tell you about time when you helped one of your colleague to grow or succeed, right? Now, in case if you do not have an answer and you want to give an answer of someone you might have helped personally instead of professionally, then you can always pivot that, right? And say that I'll give an example of how I helped one of my friend, and this is like a real life example of me, right? I'll tell you example how I helped one of my friend lose 20 kilos, right? And this has happened uh, around 8 years back when actually uh, and this is where like I generally what I do is that I try and drop few things so that the person can think about some extra questions if the person would like to ask. I did my startup a long back, and it got failed, but by the time the startup got failed, I became very overweight, and that's when I thought I should start my running journey. That's how I started my running journey to get fit. And I became from a very fat person to a kind of a fit person. And the place where I live, uh, in India, native place, there did not used to be like a lot of runners. So I used to be the only person who was running in a park. I'm talking about around 8 years back, almost daily. And then there are a few other people who noticed me, and like they said that they also want to start doing this, and that's how I started the whole Indrapuram running group, the running group that I started locally in my area. And within few months, as a group who started with like 2 or 3 persons, grew from like 3 persons to a 50 people group. And that's when one of the person contacted me, and that particular person was actually struggling with reducing the weight, and he's tried all kinds of diets and everything, and but was not able to do that. And the person became a like a father recently, right? And he was actually wanted to become fit in next 1 year. And that's how the running group that I founded was able to actually help that particular person. We motivated that person a lot. In that particular person was having a very difficult time at office, so he was not able to spend a lot of time on his health. But we ensured that whenever he is coming to the park, one of the runner would be along with him, so that he is not losing on track. We used to always keep a check on him through the WhatsApp groups and everything. And within, like, he wanted to get fit in like year, but within 6 months, the person actually lost 20 kgs without losing the muscle mass. We ensured that he's having right kinds of nutrition and all that. I'm not sure how well I framed this or not, but it's something that that happened, which is like I helped a person in the personal life, nowhere to do professional.
Nice example. And I now know how to whom to contact if I want to lose weight, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the problem is I myself keep fluctuating a lot. Uh, if
And
you James is a like James, I believe you're a ultra runner, right? If I'm not wrong, I've heard
Yeah,
that
yeah,
someone
yeah.
told me.
Ultra marathons. Yeah. So
wow.
So,
Yeah.
what's the longest you have done?
that's what the trophy is there. 50 miles. That's that.
Wow,
Oh,
like 80
oh.
kilometers. Oh man.
One of 50
Means
miler.
if I count my all 10 years, still it won't be that much. Okay, good.
So
Thank you.
I have been, I've been trying to get into London Marathon from, like every year I enter this ballot, and this year I get a mail that, like, congratulations, you got selected in London Marathon ballot, and I'm like, wow. So I have a
Hmm.
place now for London Marathon in
Excellent.
April.
I did it
Uh,
last year. It's amazing. It's no, it's not. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, but the experience is amazing, Prasad. So
yeah.
that's awesome that you've got
No,
a
I
place.
have done a London Marathon in 2019. That was for a
Oh, okay,
charity
then
place.
for okay.
Yeah, I've done it, but yeah, I was absolutely dead,
Yeah.
and not at 42 kilometers. I was absolutely dead at, like, when we hit the wall, right, at around 32, 33 kilometers, I actually hit that wall.
hmm
And the last 10 kilometers I struggled, man. I
Yeah.
was like,
I've said for years, especially like, so I ran ultras before I ran marathons, and I said for years, like, the wall isn't a real thing. It's all psychological. It doesn't. It really is very,
it
very
is.
real thing. Like it happens, and it's horrible.
Yeah,
Oh, we
it is,
digress.
and I realized it hard way. And I thought that I'll never run a marathon again, but here I am. I'm going to attempt again. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, good luck.
Nice. Now I'll take a last question in the interest of time, and then we will wrap it up. So the last question here is that anyone can go for it. Can story of giving guest lecture on AWS at a college be story of helping others to grow?
Yeah,
Why
I would
not?
say
Means
absolutely.
what is wrong in that? And it's inspiring, isn't it? That you are not just inspiring individuals, but you are inspiring the whole group. And you are
Mhm.
presenting, so that shows that you have public speaking skills, first of all. Then first thing is like you have courage. So that is another thing. And probably you had something good. That's why college invited you for that lecture. So it also shows to me that you are technically competent enough. So yeah, why not? It's a good story.
Yeah, it's a
That's
really good.
my take. How about you, Prasad and James?
Yeah, completely agree. Like it shows functional fit. Like, a part of being an SA or a consultant, that you're going to have to speak in front of maybe even small groups, but you're going to have to speak in front of people sometimes. Maybe you obviously have technical skills because you're talking about AWS, but then also deliver results, customer obsession. Your customers, the audience, or your customers delivering at scale because you've got a room full of people. So yeah, absolutely a great example to give.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I'll take from that is scale, right? So you're not doing it just 101, you're doing it one to many. And
Mhm.
always add about that. Like, after you gave that particular lecture, few of the students, if they have contacted you, can tell about the story, follow up things, what happened after that lecture. It was,
Yeah,
so see, it's not a just one time activity, right? And I'll give you an example. Again, personal example. After joining AWS, uh, I was started thinking about my promotion. You go, okay, after a year and a half, started thinking about the promotion. In fact, my manager said that, Prasad, you are doing great. So let's think whether you like, let's start writing about stories about your promotion. So what I did was I contacted one of the experienced essay within Amazon. Like, he was 4 years in, and he was promoted. I gave him a call, like, okay, can you give me any tips? And the tip that he said was that, we see that how you build on things. So actually, that particular person wrote a specific blog on a specific technology, and that blog became a kind of a big deal. Now, what the person did was create a presentation out of it and distribute that presentation. So we have internal mechanism how you can distribute the presentation. so that it can be used for in your customer meetings by every SS. So there's a central repository. That particular because that particular there was so much high interest in that particular blog, create a presentation out of it. And the worldwide essays, when I say worldwide essays, the particular person was in US region, but people in America, people in Europe, people in APAC like India and Australia, even those essays started using that deck. That particular person, because that particular uh, deck was getting popular, he actually submitted that session at AWS Summits and reInvent. And from a particular blog on the technology, he wrote, he actually presented a session at reInvent. So think how that particular thing grown. And he said that has helped me actually get promoted, because it's not about just writing one thing or doing one thing and forgetting it. So if you went to a college and talked about it, right? Come up with a follow-up things that what happened, what impact you were able to make, how many students of after that were able to get AWS certified or got into that path. That will actually help on build on that.
Great. That's a great example. Good. Thanks, everyone. And I would say that in the interest of time, that we are little surpassed from the time, but hopefully you enjoyed and got your questions answered. And keep these questions coming. That gives us more ideas, because when we think collectively, then there are more ideas being generated. So feel free to share your questions, anything which we can help you with. I agree there are tough time about hiring and all, but don't worry, things would settle down, and be prepared. And if we can help you in any journey related to anything about learning, any referrals, feel free to let us know. Would be happy to help. We are trying to catch up with the content part on the resources page. Obviously, we have our own personal time to manage. We are trying our best. Currently, as much resource we could put is there. But yes, if you have any other suggestion, anything which you want to take us, I want you to help with, or any suggestion for the next cycles also coming up, let us know, and we'll see. Like this time we had a serverless track. We may think about more tracks to run, more technical content to bring to you, more and a more behavioral track to bring to you. So feel free to share, and only by feedback we'll know how much it is helping you or how much we could have better helped you. So keep your feedback coming. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and we'll speak to you some other time. Prasad, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, if anyone is interested in coming on live and going for a mock interview, feel free to let us know, like individually, and we can talk about it. We can like get you prepped, and we can do that session and see how it goes, right? Or like do let us know like what else you would like to see in this behavioral sessions. Obviously we'll be having some guest speakers who will be sharing their uh, wisdom, and we are thinking about a few more things. But yeah, as you said, do let us know what you would like to hear.
Yeah, and if you want to be on the session but don't want to be named, so feel free to like pick up a name called James Bond. We won't reveal your identity. No problem at all on that. You can keep your camera off, or you put a picture, whatever. Yeah, but maybe because your employer may object, or maybe your current job would have a challenge. So we completely understand it, but that is not a problem. We can have a work around it. Should not be a problem. So feel free to do that too. Shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
So
Chris,
Chris,
if you're interested, if you ping one of us on LinkedIn or
Yeah,
one of the social
and
media,
we'll take it from there.
you can set that up. Yeah,
Good. So have a good one, everyone. See you
yeah.
all, and thank you for being here. We'll post this recording soon, and thank you so much. Thanks, James. Thanks, Prasad. See you then. Bye.
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.